Welcome back to the Gosforth Handyman Tips Library. Today I'm going to explain why I don't have a massive... Today I'm going to explain why I don't have a really big... Today I'm going to explain why this is my mitre station and I don't need anything bigger, thank you very much. Hiya, welcome back. Hope you're having a wonderful Saturday morning once again, and welcome to the Gosforth Handyman Tips Library. Today's tip for you is to not bother having a massive mitre station in your workshop, and I'm going to try and explain my reasoning behind that. Don't get me wrong, some of you guys have amazing mitre stations in your shops. In honesty, I'm a little bit jealous, but I just want to explain my reasoning for not having one. I used to have a bigger mitre station set up and I found a couple of issues with it, and to be honest, I got rid of it because I got so angry with it, and now I just don't miss it at all. And all I have is this, and I'm going to kind of explain why. So, in case you're not aware, this is a mitre saw. So a mitre saw lets you cut perfect 45 degree, this goes up to 50 degrees either way. Angles, you've probably seen the video I did on the sliding mitre saw that I used to have. I don't really need that anymore, so I've gone back to just the normal one. It also does angles like that as well, and you can obviously combine that with that to get compound angles. Champion, can you see it? So what people will commonly do in a workshop as soon as they get a mitre saw is they build a giant mitre station to go with it. And typically that involves effectively an extension of this fence going all the way along and an extension of the table bed going all the way along. So let me try and show you that with a couple of bits of wood. So it's kind of, imagine having a bit built all the way along here and all the way along that side as well, and having a fence built all the way along there and all the way along there, so you end up with like that kind of thing. So to simulate that, what I've done, so that fence ends up being the same distance. Let me just show you with this. So there's the edge of the bench and up to the fence here, you have that being the same distance all the way along. So I'm going to simulate that with my trusty jigsaw table that I've got set up here. This is set up exactly the same distance from, and I've screwed it to the bench temporarily, but it's just to show you what I mean. So this is exactly the same distance from the edge of here as the fence is from the edge of here. Okay, I've measured that and checked it. So what can commonly happen is that you get a bit of wood like this, and I don't know if you can see, this is a lovely bit of wood, bit of 44 by 44 kind of pine, and it's really nice, but it's got a bend in it. I don't know, can you see if we run it like that? Hopefully you can see there's a twist in it. I don't know if you can see it or not, but anyway, you'll just have to trust us, that's a bend in it. But what can commonly happen is that you've got a bend just in the end, but the rest of your wood's perfectly all right. So let's say that for whatever reason, I want to cut the wood here, and I've put a mark, on the wood here that I need to cut. Okay, so there's my cut line, and I bring it up to the table to do the cut, line up the blade. Oh, and what's this? I've got a massive gap here because the end of my wood is hitting the end of my mitre station. So can you see how my wood is perfectly against the fence here, but it can't get against the fence at this end because it's hitting the end of my mitre station. So in order to get a square cut, that wouldn't give you a square cut, that would be a slightly angled cut. In order to get that square, I've got to force that against there, put loads of extra pressure on the wood just to take that bend out. This could be a perfectly straight section of wood here, but it's because of the bend further up the piece towards the end that's hitting the mitre station that stops us from doing that. And okay, well, you might say, well, just turn your piece of wood so that it's not hitting. Well, actually, look at that. You see, like that, you were fine. Okay, but this is a bad edge. So I want to be keeping the bad edge to the bottom. I'll often want to cut through the good edge at the top because I'm going to get the cleanest cut and have the bad edge to the bottom. Or that might just be the way I've marked it up. You know, there's so many reasons why this just might be the way that I prefer to have the piece of wood. There's a few other scenarios that I'll come to in a minute. But the point is, the only way I can get a clean right-angled cut here is by either forcing that against the fence or by turning my piece of wood. Forcing that against there is generally a bad idea because it puts you into a strained position while cutting your wood where you could like slip into the path of the blade or anything. It's a really bad idea to try and do that while cutting a piece of wood on a mitre saw. You can also have a situation where halfway through the cut it starts to come away from the fence, and that can cause the wood to jam in the blade. You can get wood getting hit back in your face and all sorts of nasty things can happen. And this is all happening because my wood is hitting my mitre station. If that wasn't there, I wouldn't have the problem. The only reference point you need on a mitre saw is here. This area here, near the blade, is your reference point. You don't need anything up here or down the other side to give you a correct angled cut of whether it's a 90-degree cut you're doing or a 45 or whatever. The only place you need the wood to be flat against the fence is here. Not up there, not down there, here. So, look what happens when I remove my mitre station, my pseudo mitre station, which was actually a jigsaw table. Now, I can get that piece of wood perfectly flush against the fence and I'm not running into any problems anymore. So this is why this is my mitre station. Because you do need something to support your wood. So all I do is have this wherever I need it on the bench to support the wood. And then as long as I've got a nice flush piece of wood against the fence of the actual mitre saw, then I know everything is good. One of the other things that big mitre stations can do is give you very flexible kind of end stop stuff. So that if you want to make lots of repeated cuts of a certain length, you can build an end stop system into your fence, and that will give you a stop block to ride your piece of wood up against. Let me show you how I do that. So let's say I want to do lots of repeated cuts to make a piece of wood that is, I don't know, like that long. Okay, so let's say I want to do lots of repeated cuts. All I do, get my mitre station on there, get a clamp. There we go. One end stop, and it's supporting my piece of wood. I don't have any problems with, you know, this could have a T-section on the end and it's not running into my mitre fence or my mitre station fence that would be running along here. For example, look at this. What if you've got a piece of wood that's shaped like, it's a really bad example to be honest, but okay, let's just screw this in here. Right. Let's imagine you've got a piece of wood like this with an L shape or a T at the bottom, and you've got lots of them and you want to cut them at exactly the same point. How are you going to do that when you've got a fence running all the way along here? Oh, and of course you can make a few of these if you've got really long bits of wood and you want to support them on both sides. What I'll sometimes do as well, you might have a situation where you want the end stop to be really close to the fence. So all I do is take the screws out of there and put them on that side instead. Like that. Obviously I would support the wood on that other side, but that would let us get lots of repeated cuts of exactly that length, straight down. Cut it, do the next one, cut it, do the next one, lots of repeated cuts. It's perfectly accurate. Once you've set it up for one cut, that ain't moving. The benefit in all of this as well, let me just shift this, is that I can move my mitre saw anywhere in the shop. So I don't have to keep it here. I can move it onto another bench. I must admit, I do like the dust shrouds that people build around the mitre saws. I think they are a really good idea and work very well. Having said that, the dust bag on the DeWalt actually works really well. It's got quite good inbuilt dust collection. Obviously you get some dust around it, but it's not a huge amount. But it does give me that flexibility that I don't have to keep the saw there. If I want to cut, for example, lots of 3 or 4 metre pieces of wood, then what I could do is take my whole saw off there and just move it further up the bench. And I've got that flexibility. So that is why this is my mitre station. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Pop in the comments below of your experience with using different types of mitre stations or mitre saws. How do you prefer to have your setup? Do you have a great big mitre station set up with all the bells and whistles, and do you run into any problems, or do you find that you never run into the kind of problem that I described with bendy wood and stuff like that? Unfortunately, that's a problem we have to contend with quite a lot in the UK. Trying to find straight wood can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. I'm not having a pop at people who have built huge, beautiful mitre stations. Some of them that I've seen are truly amazing, and as I say, I'm probably just a little bit jealous. This works for the way that I work in my shop. If you find having the big mitre station works for you, then great. But all I would suggest is, if you're just getting into woodworking or setting up a shop or just buying your first mitre saw, I would suggest that you start off just with a block like I've built and see how you get on. You need something to support your bit of wood so that it's not going to be kind of flopping about in the air while you're trying to cut it. Try that for a while and see how you get on. And if you find that you desperately need a huge mitre station, then you can always do that at a later date. I've been using it like this for several years now and have not missed having the big mitre station. So that's my tip for you today. I've got some quite interesting videos coming up. My next one is going to be nothing to do with woodworking, but it's going to affect you if you're a YouTube maker. Also, before I forget as well, I'm resurrecting my Andy Mac Drums YouTube channel, which, if you're not aware, has kind of small business tips and a few kind of tax tips and stuff like that. My last video on it is all about if you're a YouTuber in the UK and what sort of tax implications that has in terms of declaring your income from YouTube and stuff like that. So please subscribe to that channel as well. Hopefully you'll find some of the information on there useful if you're a small business owner or you're self-employed, especially in the UK, but also internationally as well. Thank you again for watching. See you later. Bye!